I think there were many moments where I realized I needed help. Every time I purged, I realized that, something was off, or I was doing a behavior that maybe wasn't serving for me. But there were a couple instances where I really thought like, oh shoot, I think I need help for this. One was when I was very, very sick. I had had all these like hormonal problems as a result of obviously not nourishing myself properly. And I kept having this thing called cyclic vomiting, and I would spend a week where I would just be like laying out on the bathroom floor, like very, very sick, not intentionally so. And I would still try to exercise through it. And so every day, like I couldn't miss a day without going to the gym. And so I found myself like on the Stairmaster at like my lowest weight, super dehydrated, and I just like was so weak. And I remember being really scared and just like feeling like I had to keep going on the Stairmaster, and I didn't want to. Like I felt like it was just, I wasn't in control. And I think that was a moment where I thought like, wow, I knew a lot about eating disorders because I was doing my master's in counseling psychology at the time. And I thought like, wow, I could drop dead here. The first time I reached out, I was 17. So I was still in high school, and I bussed down to the mental health clinic, and I had a really terrible experience because, the intake worker was not, at least in my experience, was not very compassionate. And it was the first time I'd ever told anybody about my eating disorder. And she just sort of peppered me with questions. And I just felt like I was not sick enough. And I walked away feeling very invalidated and dismissed. And so I didn't reach out again for several years. And then another way that I reached out for help was I found a forum online called bulimiahelp.org. And it was this forum, I don't think it's the same now, but it was where there were like thousands of members, and they were all sharing their stories and their experiences with bulimia. And it was the first time that I felt like I really belonged to a community, and it was all confidential, and I could just write about my experience, and everyone supported each other. So it really helped reduce a lot of my shame around the behaviors. And helped me recognize, that recovery is possible, and that there were all these other people, doing it with me. What helped me the most in my recovery was learning that what my eating disorder had told me would happen if I continued to starve myself was actually a lie. So I believed that if I kept myself very thin, I would be able to protect myself from pain. And that didn't happen, because when I was in the depths of my eating disorder, my boyfriend of 3 years dumped me, and I was absolutely shattered emotionally. And I had believed that, I could protect myself from being left and protect myself from pain through restriction, and that obviously didn't happen. So that was a really great experiential learning that like, wait a minute, some of these things that my eating disorder is telling me are lies, and maybe I should start to think a little bit more critically about some of the other things it's telling me. And as I started to that threw me out of my comfort zone. And as I started to keep stepping out of my comfort zone and feeling my feelings, a couple of other things that really helped me were yoga. I had so many over-exercising injuries that my physical therapist told me that was all I could do. And the beautiful byproduct of that was beginning to learn about compassion, self-compassion, learning how to feel my feelings, breath and body awareness, which reconnected me to my body I'd been disconnected from for so long. But the other things that were really important for me was gaining a sense of meaning and purpose in this world that was unrelated to my appearance or to my body. So at that time, I found my first really meaningful job and began to realize, that I had more to offer the world than, again, my body. And connection was so huge for me. I had been so disconnected and isolated for the years that I struggled with my eating disorder, particularly toward the end. And I was sort of forced to reconnect as a result of my breakup. I was so lonely and in so much pain that I forced myself to reconnect with people. And that was so, again, experientially transformative, because my eating disorder had told me that like I'm unlovable, if I'm over a certain weight. And really, like, as I was, becoming more weight restored, people were so supportive and there for me, and really saw me as me. And I began to realize that, again, one of the lies my eating disorder had told me was that I'm not accepted or worthy or lovable if I'm X size.